After 11 years here, there's been some tremendous progress in the life of this congregation. But with an aging sanctuary building, we've had to do patchwork on it from time to time. One of the campaign's goals, and it's a clear goal, is to open up this building to as many people as we can. The Expanded Narthex will provide a meeting place, a kind of a gathering area, which will provide a more gentle movement from secular space to sacred space. It'll be an attractive place where folks can gather after worship and avoid the kinds of traffic jams we have now when people are trying to get out of church and yet they want to shake the preacher's hand and tell him good sermon. So this Narthex expansion will do a number of things and meet a number of objectives for us. One will be to open up our building to our senior adults so that they don't have to walk clean over to the administration building to get up on the sanctuary level. There'll be an elevator in this Expanded Narthex. It'll have restroom facilities easily accessible for folks so that they can go out through the narthex to use the restrooms rather than having to exit in the front.
Well, we've got quite a few older folks who are on, canes or walkers. Our class, which people over 50, our Sunday school class is on that lower level. That's the only room that will hold 30 people, and we have good attendance. Our people, they like to park up on the upper level because they're handicapped places, but once they get in here, then they've got to go down these steps to get to our classroom. A lot of them have had hip replacements, knee surgery.
In addition, there'll be a room for families to gather. That's important because in terms of funeral services or even weddings, we need a place in this building that's accessible to folks and accessible to the narthex so that they can gather prior to the service. Brides have to get dressed and put their dresses on, and then they have to make the trek over here somehow. So this will provide that kind of facility as well. In addition, the narthex expansion will add a covered drop-off over to the side where folks can easily exit and enter their cars if it's raining or snowing, and that's also important for our senior adults, but not just for them alone. The organ is now as old as this building, so it was built in around 1966. I believe the cornerstone is 66. So we have an organ that's now, 40 years old? And it's time to do some major maintenance on it.
I'm experiencing some notes that are completely dead. An example on a Sunday morning would be that I don't know exactly which notes are going to work. And just an example, let's see if this one works. It works tonight. That note does not work tonight. So it's really nerve-wracking to perform on an instrument like this when you don't know whether it's going to work or not. Each pipe has a little pouch underneath that is made of leather that causes a valve to open when the air goes up into it. That leather under each pipe has deteriorated.
It's a minor expense, really, when you compare it to the rest of the campaign, but it's an essential thing we need to do for our worship quality.
This is one of the best spaces in the church in terms of flexibility and the number of people who use this space. We use this space on Sunday nights for youth group. We use it on Wednesday evenings for our fellowship dinners.
It's a great space. We have our contemporary worship service in there, but we have to make some modifications because the sound in there is just ringy as all get out.
We have recently had an acoustical study done by an acoustical engineer who has given us the proper design for putting sound panels on the walls.
When people are meeting, they can't hear one another. When people are doing public speaking, the volume increases because you can hear the voices several times.
Right now there's a reverb time, which is the time it takes a sound to stop bouncing around in the space. Now we have a reverb time of somewhere probably around 6, and we're going to reduce that to 2. So it will drastically change the way that space sounds and feels.
The Activities Annex will help support our youth in that it'll give them a place to call their own within the church. Currently, we have a youth group that is so large that we're not able to use the space that we have for them right now.
We meet every Sunday about like 5:30, so we have dinner and we play a few games, and then we kind of separate and go junior high and senior high. The youth group meets in the parlor because we've kind of grown so big that we can't fit into the senior high room, and we're kind of getting overcrowded in the parlor too. A lot of people are showing up. Lately we've been talking about different religions and just kind of different topics to kind of get us aware of other people and what they do in their religions.
This space that we're talking about now, this Activities Annex we're calling it, will have rooms for our junior high and senior high meeting rooms. That'll be their space. But more than that, it'll provide a smaller space for smaller meetings. Let me give you an example. We have a group called Parents Without Partners that meets here occasionally, and there are probably about 10 of them, and they use the fellowship hall. It's a cavern for them. You get totally lost. Plus, we have to heat that fellowship hall and provide utilities there. The Activities Annex will provide smaller meeting rooms designed for those kinds of groupings where we won't have to heat or cool the fellowship hall or run the utilities in that room because it'll be on a separate controlled system.
So we see this space not being used exclusively by our youth by any means, but a space that is shared with a larger congregation of Parkway Presbyterian Church, and as well with the community who uses that space for many different functions.
The Columbarium will provide niches for the cremated remains of folk who choose to use it. It's become a stewardship issue in a lot of ways for me. With the high cost of funerals and ground burial, cremation and the use of a columbarium is a much more economical way to handle final expenses.
It also is a stewardship of land. Instead of land being taken up with burial plots in the ground, and we know that in certain parts of the country it's difficult to find places to do that. The project will include 100 niches, and each niche will be large enough to handle the ashes for a husband and wife or a parent and child, but 2 sets of ashes in each niche. There will be a memorial wall with plaques with the names of individuals who may have family plots and actually be buried elsewhere, or who have family members that they simply want to remember. There will be a fountain which will help to drown out road noise and other competing noises. Over time, as we purchase spaces, the project will be totally self-funding.
We need to paint the exterior of our building. That's become fairly obvious. All you have to do is walk around and look at the eaves particularly, and the bell tower. But the interior spaces, this room we're in, I don't know that it's ever been painted since it was built. But the walls are dingy and need to be repainted. Some repair and patching needs to be done. Some of the moldings on our ceiling have come loose. Before we do the acoustic work in the fellowship hall will be painted as well. There's been some degradation of the walls, and we need to fix that and then repaint over it before we put the acoustic material up. And across the church, you know, when you look around the walls, I mean, we've got wear and tear on the walls. I'm glad for that. It shows activity. But it's time to kind of put some new paint on. One of the most exciting things that I've seen happen in this congregation in the last 11 years has been a tremendous increase in the interest in missions and outreach ministries. Our senior highs do a mission trip every year. They go out of the country one year, go to Appalachia one year, and stay in town another year. We have now had a decade's worth of work in Haiti from this congregation. And not only that, but local missions have benefited from increased benevolent giving and the support in terms of volunteer hours of our members. So missions and outreach has become a really important piece of our focus as a servant church. In this campaign, a tithe of what we raise, 10%, will be used for mission work and outreach work, so that it's not just money that we're spending on ourselves, but it's money that we're dedicating to God's use on the mission field, and fits in so well with our focus as a servant church and what we perceive to be our ministry these days. It's not just to our members, but it's to members of our community and God's world.